2.
Are you curious about bodies, pleasure, and possibilities? And what about curious about what others are up to on the planet when it comes to pleasure, sex, and play? Have you considered what pleasure can do for your life, your body, and your bank account? Do you know something magical, delightful, and out of this world orgasmic is not only possible for you, but totally available to you? If you're ready to be the magical, sexual, sexy beast you know you can be, and you just need the tools to get there, you're in the right place. Now, here's the host of The Pleasure Zone, sensual movement artist, relationship and sex alchemist, Milica Jelenic.
Welcome, sweet pleasure seekers. Today we're going to have a conversation at some point with Brooke Hazen. We're just getting that all worked up right now. So Brooke Hazen is a coach. He's a coach for different things, like a life coach, as well as let me get my information. This is fun. Guys, this might be my most chaotic show of all time. So you're welcome, and you're welcome to be watching this. So Brooke Hazen is an organic farmer, lifelong athlete, physical coach, health and fitness enthusiast, a Southern California native, and Brooke grew up loving the ocean and the natural world. His affinity for the land, healthy living, and natural foods led him to study agriculture at Humboldt State. In 2001, Brooke realized his vision to grow nutritious, organic, farm-to-table foods under his own brand when he purchased 88 acres of pastureland in the beautiful Northern California farming region of Sebastopol. He now cultivates apples, citrus, medicinal herbs, and high polyphenol olives. Walking the rows each day, he meticulously hand tends his orchards and presses award-winning extra virgin olive oil and his West Sonoma County farm and olive mill, Goldridge Organic Farms. So he also is the author of You Are Not Broken, a holistic guide for men and women to heal the pathways of sexual dysfunction and restore relational harmony together. So that's his first book. And we're also going to be discussing a few things with him regarding erectile dysfunction and how Western medicine treats it or doesn't treat it. And this is really going to be an interesting one if we can get on live. So hopefully that does occur. Are we on live? We are. Did we get on live? Brooke, is that you? Okay, well, that was not. That was a momentary shot.
You hear me?
Yes, I can, Brooke. We have you. Yay! Fantastic. That was exciting, and thank you for figuring that out. So we have had, so for those of you who don't know or don't know me, you might have found out that there was a tornado in my area last week. My internet is down, so I'm at a totally different location. Brooke is brand new to the show, so he does not know what's going on either, and we are having a fun and interesting time. All righty, so, and now okay, we are having some very interesting tech times. So we need to get Brooke back. In the meantime, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's going on with his, with what he does and what he talks about. So one of the things that Brooke does talk about when we get him on is a lot of his information will involve all kinds of things to do with healing modalities that he's found to be effective in treating sexual dysfunction. We're also going to be talking about why Western medicine falls short of addressing and treating the root cause of sexual issues. We'll also be discussing why healing methods need to address the physical, emotional, and spiritual aspects of sexual dysfunction in order to resolve it. Some of the other things that Brooke discusses is how common it is to experience serious side effects from medication intended to actually treat sexual dysfunction, and how widespread sexual performance issues are and the havoc they wreak on a person's confidence and their relationships. We're also going to be discussing why he believes that a whole body healing approach helped him and how it can help everyone listening today. So as much as this is geared towards erectile dysfunction, that doesn't disclude female sexual dysfunction either. A lot of times the nutrition that's involved is for both bodies that are male, female. It's not going to be exclusive. However, if you do have erectile dysfunction, this show is truly geared for you. For those of you who have been longtime listeners, we've had actually one of my very first shows in 2014. In the very first month, I interviewed somebody all about erectile dysfunction and how pornography led to erectile dysfunction. So I find erectile dysfunction a really important topic for sure, because it does create a lot of issues for people in the relationships, whether it's heterosexual relationships or whether it's everything else on the spectrum relationships. Definitely erectile function is important, and erectile dysfunction can wreak havoc. So we're waiting to see if we can get Brooke on. I think he's having some tech difficulties, so hopefully this runs a little bit smoother than we thought it was going to run smoother. So this is not a topic, guys, that is totally foreign to me. So I'm going to just start a little conversation on this. So some of the things that I know about nutrition, for one, is that when your body has the right nutrients, proteins, oils, fats, all of it, there we have Brooke. Hi, Brooke. Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Awesome. So I've just been introducing them. I gave them the long version of your bio that I have, and I also gave them a bit of a long version of some things we'll be discussing. So we have that on track. And cool. And now Brooke can hear me back, which is great. So hi, Brooke. Thank you for your willingness to continue to get on here tonight with me, because sometimes tech can be a real pain. I'm wondering, what is it that actually got you into, like, I'd like to hear your story. What got you to write this book, which is partly what got me interested in having you on. And yeah, a little bit of your backstory would be fantastic. Okay, so we just froze again. All right, so I'm going to go on about some nutrition while we do this. So what I was talking about earlier, I actually have done recently just an entire program for menopause and menstruation related to nutrition. So I know that these nutritional things are key for all bodies, but if we can actually get Brooke on to talk, that's great. If this ends up being an audio only podcast, that's okay too.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. So just before you dropped, I was just asking if you could share a bit of your story with us.
Sure. Okay, I'm not on the mic, just so you know. So we're going.
You're good.
Yeah. Well, great to be on. I'll just start by saying that erectile dysfunction for men today is essentially a death sentence sexually. We are handed a lifetime prescription of pharmaceutical ED drugs with no plan to regain a vibrant, healthy sexual function ever again. It's no wonder that men don't want to talk about it, because there's no solutions for them, and they're terrified by the draconian measures of Western medicine. And that's exactly why I wrote my book. When I received my own miracle healing, I promised God I would write a book, and I fulfilled that promise. And a few years ago, when I was in the depths, the darkness of staring at possible never recovering my vibrant sexual health again, I would have never guessed that I'd be at the point now where I'm actually come into such an amazing point in my life where I'm actually blessed with divulging to everyone possibly maybe the only person that has simple and easy, holistic, curative, and preventative solutions for all major forms of ED. There really is no place for ED today, and there's nothing to fear. It's Western medicine, the pharmaceutical industry, They have zero interest in providing real solutions and getting to the root source of the problem. In fact, the moment that we get empowered and we start to heal ourselves, this poses a direct threat to the billions of dollars they make off of only two measures they offer. One is pharmaceutical drugs and the other surgeries. That's it. That's all you're going to get. Western medicine, the pharmaceutical, pornographic, and the insurance industries are the richest corporations on earth. They profit off of our diseases, dysfunctions, imbalances, and addictions. Pharmaceutical ED drugs have a very small sliver of recourse. They boost nitric oxide production to the cardiovascular system, endothelial layer, beyond what our body is capable of producing naturally from within. And this causes debilitating side effects because essentially it induces blood flow to not just the lingam, but the brain, the heart, the muscles, because it's all interconnected. Not only that, but they have diminishing and eventually failing effects for two reasons. One is that they never get at the root source of the problem. And so that underlying cause goes unaddressed and continues to exist and to worsen. And secondly, as would happen with myself and millions of men right now, I was misdiagnosed and misprescribed pharmaceutical blood flow inducing ED meds when I didn't have a blood flow issue at all. I had porn-induced erectile dysfunction, which is a neurological based form of ED. Also, it's energetic. I'll be getting into that. But I was basically, they don't know what to do with this. This is the fastest growing segment of ED we see today, and a predominant one. But they only have one tool. The ED med they chanced upon. This was a total fluke by accident that they discovered it. So they continue to misprescribe and misdiagnose. But as I was going through this process, this deepened my relationship with God. I was falling into a deep depression for weeks at a time. And when I came to the end, the last drug failed me. I had come to the end of the road. And if you can imagine, a few years ago, I didn't know what I knew now. It was just myself all alone. I didn't know what was going to happen. I had no plan. It was just myself and God. And so I decided to completely let go into God's arms and pray for a healing miracle over and over. And it was at that time that God decided that I was finally ready and led me on the most unexpected, unbelievable, and beautiful journey of natural healing, learning, growth, and massive transformation, not only of my sexual health to levels I could have never imagined, but also my overall physical health and my relational, my emotional and mental health, and showed me how this is all inextricably interlinked and cannot be separated. I just encourage people to strip themselves bare of the blocks that are blocking us from becoming the ideal versions of ourselves we're truly meant to be, by letting go of our fears, the myths and misconceptions, the addictions and negative habits, and the peer pressure from friends, family, society, and especially corporations. The miracle that God led me to was Your Brain on Porn by Gary Wilson, which forever changed my life. And I recommend it definitely in my book. I understand so profoundly and so clearly now why God led me to this miracle, because God wanted me to learn and to teach everyone else the enormous power that our sexual behavioral decisions have to either create massive dysfunction or massive positive transformation in all areas of our life. By simply quitting our addiction to pornography and semen release and rebuilding our neurology, raising our dopamine levels and chi sexual energy up to healthy levels, this truly is the springboard, the foundation for transformation. It's the key to unlocking the unlimited potential of our mind, where we can do anything we put our mind to. And it's really the two most powerful biohacks on the face of the planet. My book is full of biohack after biohack, but these are the two most powerful that we must start at, both when we look at sexual dysfunction as well as all forms of our life, transformation in every aspect of our life.
Absolutely. I think so. About 8 years ago, I was mentioning this before you got on to be live with us. About 8 years ago, I had one of my very first episodes of this show was with a guest, and we talked about pornography and how it leads to erectile dysfunction. So I think it's kind of fun because I'm like in my 8th anniversary, we're back at this place. And the funniest thing is I did that show from this room. So wild. And I haven't been in this room for a show for that long. So
Wow.
It's kind of funny that we're coming full circle, and the universe created it that way because of the tornadoes. I had to be here. So Very funny. We're going to be heading to our first commercial break. So just a heads up, during commercials, we're just going to, we just are quiet while the commercials run, because we didn't get to share that with you when we were doing our preview stuff. We'll be right back, and we're going to have lots more to talk about with Brooke. We've got another, 45 minutes left of chatting. So stay tuned, and we're going to have lots more conversations for you guys after this commercial. You're listening to Pleasure Zone, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for the Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email become a host at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is the Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email. info@milicajelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, my sweet pleasure seekers. Tonight we are talking about, I'm actually speaking to my guest, Brooke Hazen, about breaking free from the depression of erectile dysfunction. And I love that title when it was sent to me, which got me intrigued as well, because there is definitely a neurological effect that happens in the body when you are not having all your happy hormones running that occur when you are able to function optimally sexually. So there is definitely a level of depression, and things like dopamine do kick in when your sexual function is higher, as we talk a lot about on the show when we talk about physiology, biology, energetics, spirit, all the different levels that are required to have super happy, pleasurable sex lives. So what a great opportunity I felt to have a conversation with you, Brooke, that this is something that you encompass all the topics that we talk about on this show all the time. And I thought it'd be fun to talk with somebody who's lived it, who's experienced it, and then has also found solutions. And that's really what I love talking about, our solutions. But also, I'd love to hear more from you about what some of the things about that you kind of discovered either through your research or personally about the porn-induced erectile dysfunction.
Okay, sure. Well, I've actually identified a few different forms of ED that I just wanted to first introduce before we delve into PID, because it takes a moment to talk about PID. But I want to demystify ED. I want to make it simple and easy and clear, because it really is. We have solutions that are simple and easy. Western medicine and the pharmaceutical industry want to make it confusing. They want to gaslight you and point everywhere else except to the core problems and get to the real solutions where we can heal. They depend on a steady stream of sick and dysfunctional people to enrich them. Okay, but I've identified three major forms of ED we see today. The first is porn-induced erectile dysfunction, and we'll get into that. But I just wanted to mention as a little teaser on that we're now entering the end of a 2-decade-long massive experiment on the minds and neurology of the global population. And the results are now in, and the results are terrifying. We're seeing an entire generation of young men as virgins unable to have the first sexual experience of their lives and engage in any meaningful relationship. Now, can you imagine the terror of thinking you may never have a real life connective sexual engagement with a human being, thinking you're relegated to the, to pixels on a screen, to a fantasy for your entire life? Well, I know men that have gone through this. My coach went through this and now is a leader in the movement. But pornography is destroying, that's where we're at today. And it's destroying neurology, relationships, and leaving men impotent to life completely. What we're doing is really wrong. What's happening is very wrong. The second form of ED we see today is what I call energetic ED. And this is always linked with porn-induced erectile dysfunction, but it is its own distinct form of ED. And this is from releasing our semen too often. And this depletes our chi sexual energy, which is both our physical and our sexual energy. And it causes a sexual exhaustion to where we can't perform well sexually. And we'll get into both of those, but both of these have solutions that are simple, easy, and free, actually. It doesn't enrich these corporations at all, which is probably why they don't want to talk about it.
Definitely why.
Yeah. But not only that, but we're empowered to resolve these. Not only are we empowered, we're the only power capable of resolving these. Even if we want to give away our power to the pharmaceutical industry and Western medicine, they can't resolve it for us. It takes each individual going into their own hearts and souls and resolving to quit this addiction, simply give up and let go of that addiction to pornography and semen release. Now, the third form of ED that we all talk about, we're hyper-focused on, is what's called organic ED. And this is basically means physical ED. It has to do with cardiovascular function and hormonal function, or if you had surgeries or injuries to the pelvic region. And, but we really should start first with the number one diagnosis should absolutely be, how often do we release our semen to pornography? Because even if we resolve the organic ED, and if someone still has an addiction to pornography and semen release, they're still going to have ED. But we need to be clear, we're not actually resolving anything with these pharmaceutical ED drugs. Even the natural ED supplement industry, which mimics the same nitric oxide production pathway, are not curing anything. There's no curative powers in these pills. That's what people misunderstand. They don't get to the root core solution. They just keep you dependent on it for your entire lifetime by boosting nitric oxide every time you want to have sex. Okay, so what I did is I asked the simple question with blood flow restrictive ED, because there's hormones, blood, within organic ED, and I'll get into that briefly, and then we'll go to porn-induced erectile dysfunction. But I did find this amazing discovery in my course of searching for myself, increased cardiovascular flow for my vibrant sexual health function. Even though I didn't really have an issue, I did have mild arteriosclerosis, but I actually cleared that up through IV therapy. But I simply asked the question, how can we empower our body to produce nitric oxide intelligently from within whenever and wherever we want it? So we're no longer dependent on this mechanical, unacceptable idea of reaching for a pill every time we want to make love. That's not in resonance with the flow and creativity of making love at all. And I totally reject that. There's no reason to have this archaic system that Western medicine is trying to cram down our throats. So what I did is I have a two-pronged approach when it comes to blood flow restrictive ED. That's assuming someone actually does have blood flow restrictive ED. And basically I get to the root source of it. And then I also have a way of getting rid of the arteriosclerosis. And this is what Western medicine, the pharmaceutical industry absolutely do not want you to know. And they're actually actively fighting against naturopathy with IV therapy, some of these IV therapies. There's really a war going on right now between the naturopathy and Western medicine. And naturopathy, we need to realize that true healing comes from natural healing modalities and lifestyle changes. So that's my two-pronged approach is what happens is we actually think that we're supposed to keep taking these drugs and surgeries for lifetime, when actually it's supposed to be a bridge. We're actually supposed to, when we've been ignoring these lifestyle problems, basically these elephants in the room that Western medicine doesn't want to talk about, like it comes from free radicals. Blood flow restrictive ED and arteriosclerosis are the same thing. It comes from free radical damage. It comes from heavy metals, which are linked to arteriosclerosis. They're free radicals, and I'm a very big fan of getting rid of heavy metals. I had high heavy metals myself. I love getting rid of
people always getting rid of their heavy metals. Yeah, it's like one of the top things. Get rid of your heavy metals because they're in everything.
Yes, I love
they're
that.
in our air too. So
it's hard to get rid of. I've been doing it for years and still have it.
Yeah, because we're breathing it, and it's in our soils, it's in our water.
Exactly. So heavy metals come from what we eat, breathe, and drink. So we get rid of the source of these free radicals, there's really four sources: heavy metals, an animal-based diet, which is high in free radicals, carcinogens, and saturated fats. And the science is clear that this has short-term negative consequences on our sexual potency, and long-term creates blood flow restrictive ED and arteriosclerosis. And the third is actually environmental pollutants. And this includes microplastics. Microplastics,
oh my God, they're the worst.
The latest science.
I could go on.
No, we need to be really aware microplastics create arteriosclerosis. They are free radicals, and they're endocrine disruptors that pass the blood-brain barrier. This is a serious epidemic that's taking place, where they're pushing this whole plastic on us, and it's an experiment. That's what I was going to say. This is
a total experiment, and it's been brought into our bodies by different experimental things, hasn't it? And in our waters, but it's also through other things that are being injected into bodies. There's plastics and a lot of stuff.
So also there's chemicals, pesticides that also are hormone disruptors. Endocrine means hormones, so that disrupts our testosterone estrogen balance. And then there's also smoking. That's it. That's the four sources that cause arteriosclerosis and blood flow restrictive ED. Western medicine will never talk to you about this. And they'll never tell you how you can actually get rid of the arteriosclerosis. So we need to understand arteriosclerosis is our body's only mode of protection from free radical damage. Our liver produces, even if you're plant-based like myself, our liver produces increasing levels of cholesterol in order to deactivate free radicals at the site of damage taking place in our endothelial layer. And it comes out, it's not bad. It's actually incredible miracle of nature. It's actually rich in antioxidants, anti-inflammatory, antiviral, and anti-carcinogenic properties. And it's incredibly effective at deactivating these free radicals when we've avoided making the correct lifestyle choices. So it's our body's only mode of protection when we've ignored these choices we need to be making. So we want to do both. We want to make the lifestyle changes, and we want to also clear up this arteriosclerosis. The highest grossing product in world history is the statin industry. And statins basically punch the liver to the point where it cannot produce cholesterol anymore. And now the latest science is showing that elderly are experiencing increasing fatalities from cancer and cardiovascular events, the very things that's supposed to protect us against. And yet they do not even get to the root source of the problem, which is free radical damage. That is the very definition of malpractice. So we can get rid of the arteriosclerosis from IV therapy, two in particular. One is a chelation. As you know, it's ETA, which chelates out basically the heavy metal and the calcification portion of the arteriosclerosis. And then plaque X, I don't know if you heard of that. It's phosphatidylcholine, or PC for short. It's soybean derived, and that backs out the the plaque portion of the arteriosclerosis. And I know this works because I did this on myself. I did an ultrasound before and after, and I removed my mild arteriosclerosis. Plus, there's government-funded study, the Trial to Assess Escalation Therapy 1, which showed a 51% reduction in cardiac events and a 43% reduction in mortality in patients with diabetes. That's incredible. So once we get rid of the arteriosclerosis, then we need to also make the lifestyle changes. Watch what goes into our mouth, what we eat, breathe, and drink, how much we eat, how often we eat, and what we eat. So we need to change from a animal-based diet to a plant-based diet if we want to increase our sexual function and we want to avoid arteriosclerosis. The science is very clear that an intelligent plant-based diet protects us from the 15 leading causes of death in the world, as well as increases our lifespan by 10 years. Sign me up. So these are not hard choices to make. What I recommend is very simple. It's basically an intelligent light force diet, which is organic, whole fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, and whole grains, and avoid
whole grains.
and avoid processed flours, sugars. Soft drinks are especially bad because it's just a rich source of sugars all in ones. And then fried
caffeine.
Food.
We'll throw caffeine in there too, because caffeine strips all the glucose out of your body. So we'll throw caffeine in there while we're at it.
Thank you. Yeah, I don't do caffeine, but and then also fried foods. They turn into free radicals also. With fried foods, I recommend lightly frying with olive oil because that does not change into free radicals.
And it can change to trans fats after a certain temperature, right? So some foods are better to add the oil after, like if you can steam it or whatever, add the oils. Your body needs oils, right? So your body does need cold pressed oils. Like you actually have an olive grove, right?
Yeah.
So you're producing extra virgin olive oil. That's a super great content for the essential fatty acids we need. And also things like borage oil are super great for the essential fatty acids we need, but that's a little bit harder to get. But all those oils, like flaxseed oil too, the cold pressed oils, you definitely want to go cold pressed if you're going to get oils for sure.
Definitely, yeah. So just real quick to wrap up, I can't go into organic tea into any depth because you have to read my book, but I will mention a couple other things. Intermittent fasting puts us into plant-based ketosis, and that's where we burn fat instead of glucose. And then also it's anti-aging because it puts us into autophagy after 18 hours, which burns off misshapen cellular components. I've experienced amazing benefits from intermittent fasting. Plus, it's the only way for us to burn visceral fat, which is an especially dangerous form of fat that wraps around our organs. It's underneath our muscle. So we can't remove it any other way. I also recommend regularly donating blood. You probably never have heard of this, but even donating blood once a year reduces the chance of heart attack by 88%. It should be practiced with everyone. But I even recommend people donate consistently. Every time they're invited back in, go in. That's what I do because in the course of a year, we regenerate all new red blood cell, white blood cell, platelets, and plasma. And the latest science is showing this is a major biohack that changes the cellular message to one of youthfulness right in front of our eyes. Mm-hmm. Not only that, but it reduces blood viscosity and pressure, and it reduces oxidants and iron stores and increases antioxidant capacity. So it's an amazing thing. Then the second part of organic ED is hormones, and that's simple and easy. And in fact, I want to say that all these healing modalities in my book are for men and women equally. I've found that men and women share the same neurology, same cardiovascular system. We even share the same modalities for hormones, believe it or not. The only difference I see with men is I think women should totally practice orgasms. That's fine. Men have this semen release aspect with the dopamine crash that we'll be getting into. And that's the only difference I see. But as far as hormones, I recommend bioidentical pellet testosterone replacement therapy for men and women. In fact, I was so excited to see the benefits for women when I found out about BPTRT for women. The latest science is showing that it actually decreases existing breast cancer as well as existing breast cancer tumors. It can be used as a monotherapy for breast cancer for women. And it also reduces all menopausal symptoms. I mean, but the whole concept of the testosterone is it increases our sexual energy, but it does this by increasing our overall physical energy, because our physical and sexual energy are completely interlinked and inseparable. There's not a separate compartment for sexual energy and a separate one for physical. They're all intermeshed and flowing together. And so the concept is we harness this increased energy from the pellet testosterone replacement therapy and use it to increase our physical fitness with sit-ups, weights, exercise, movement, whatever you're passionate about. Kegels, which are used as a monotherapy for ED, they're the PC muscles, building up those PC muscles, which actually can be used for men for semen release. We'll be getting into that next.
Yeah, and for those of you who want even more on NEMO, which is non-ejaculatory male orgasms, I've done a few shows on that too. So remember to go back and you can have a full hour on that if you want. It's great stuff. I highly recommend it for people who actually practice NEMO. They have an increased energy for sure. And they also have an increased satisfaction in their sex life by far. And for their partner also has an increased satisfaction in their sex life. But we will get into that. We're going to head to our next commercial break. So you're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Interested in masturbating for money, copulating for consciousness, and pleasuring on purpose? 21 Days of Sexual Magicism with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic is an exploration of tools, processes, and actions that you can use to create more for your life, your body, your money inflows, and so much more. Graduated learning for all levels of interest. Learn at your own pace via video classes or join the yearly live class. Take a peek at www.milicajelenic.com.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email, info@milicajelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back, my sweet pleasure seekers. So for those of you who are just joining us live right now, we are having a conversation I'm having a conversation with Brooke Hazen all about ED, erectile dysfunction, and the different ways and things that have occurred in your body, whether it's been nutritional havoc on your body or whether there's been different environmental things that have occurred that have had your body go into a place where it no longer has satisfaction. There are also for one thing, I want you guys to know that you're listening out there. There are different levels of ED. There are different kinds for sure, and there are different levels. And sometimes people think, I don't have ED because I can kind of get an erection. And they don't realize that it's not that you have to have lost it completely. There might be that it changes, and it's changed more than would be normal for your age. Say at the age of 35, not having a really strong erection is something that can actually be concerning. And when I have people come into my office who have different health issues, I often say, okay, so you've got this going on. We need to actually really check your heart condition. We need to check things going on with your veins, with your health. We need to check your liver. We need to check other things, because I know you think, no big deal, I just have erectile dysfunction, kind of, sort of. I'm like, it's actually a precursor and a sign to a lot of things. So this is not just about you're going to have better sex, you're going to have more orgasms, you're going to be able to do it for longer. This is actually concerning for your health, for your welfare, for your life. So even for women, there's erectile tissue in your clitoris, and there can be erectile dysfunction in a way for women as well, but it's called something else. So, and for women, the one thing that we have different, or we'll refer to as those of us with uteruses, we have another way in a system to clean out our bodies that men don't have, or bodies with penises. And we slough off toxins through our uterus. So like the sloughing off on the monthly basis is a bonus that men don't get. So bodies with penises actually need more cleanouts than bodies with uteruses. And if you have had your uterus removed, then you're also missing a cleanout for your body as well. So that is, for those of you who are listening and you want to know more about why and how and like blah, 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 I do have a course on menopause and menstruation so that you can have it with ease. And we talk about nutrition. We talk about different things to do with biology so you can understand some basics. And then we also talk about a lot of things to do with movement so that you can have better movement, and you can do simple things to increase your orgasms. It might blow your mind, because it's like, why, if I unlock my neck, do I have better orgasms? But if you want to know why, you can connect with me and we will find out why that is. So welcome back, Brooke. Just before we went to break, you mentioned briefly about energetic ED, and I think there are so many levels to energetic ED, but I would like to hear what your take and what information you've come across and experience you've come across with energetic ED.
Okay. Do you want to talk about porn-induced erectile dysfunction first, or after that?
We could. We have like about 13 minutes left of the show, so it depends on what you prefer to talk about.
Well, let's start with porn-induced, and then porn-induced erectile dysfunction. I also have a term for women I came up with: porn-induced arousal dysfunction. You know, 80% of men watch pornography at least once a week, and 26% of women. So this also affects women. But this is a porn-induced erectile dysfunction. The fastest growing segment of ED we see today, and a predominant one, is a neurologically based form of ED. It has to do with dopamine. Dopamine is our drive, determination, and will to become the ideal beings we're truly meant to be. It's also our arousal to sex, arousal to life. And, you know, I call it an arousal displacement dysfunction. Because that's what's happening. Basically, we are displacing our arousal for a real connected partner with a device, with the fantasy on a screen. And not only that, but we're constantly displacing our arousal throughout, because we're escalating every time we release our semen to pornography. We're desensitizing and escalate, and we're forced to escalate our pornographic material in order to get the same dopamine hit as before. So eventually men get to the point, I didn't get to that point yet, but hundreds of thousands of men get to the point where they cannot even get aroused to their favorite pornography that's escalated beyond their own moral standards, at which point they're really unable to get aroused to life itself. But the science shows that clearly for porn users, that dopamine levels and receptors are depleted to the same chronically low levels experienced by cocaine and morphine addicts. In fact, the brain cannot differentiate between a physical addiction to a drug and a neurological addiction to the superstimulus of pornography. And the reason pornography, PID, is a superstimulus is because it combines two major elements. The first is the novelty. We have endless novelty at our fingertips that we can select for each individual's own specific neurological arousal pathways, combined with the second major element, which is semen release. Now, I don't use the term ejaculation on purpose because I'm not here to take away pleasure. I'm here to increase men's pleasure and women's pleasure. In fact, men in the West completely misunderstand. They think that I'm trying to take something away from them, but actually, all we're saying to do is to block the semen from being released. In Tantra, we regularly practice what's called full body orgasm ejaculation without semen release. This is where the lingam and the entire body ejaculates and orgasms and pulses in ecstasy as the chi sexual energy cycles throughout our body. We're simply blocking that semen from coming out. The reason is in the East, they've been aware for millennia. It's just in the West that we're so naive of the immense toll that semen release takes on a male. The moment semen is released, a male will go into an intense neurological, mental, and physical refractory period and process of replenishment in which dopamine levels crash and prolactin levels rise, which prolactin's linked with fatigue and even hair loss. As the body pulls all the most precious resources of hormones, growth factors, nutrients to replace the loss of that vital sperm. And it causes fatigue, mood imbalance, and distancing. For the science shows for at least solidly the first 3 days are the most intense, but it actually weaves up and down for up to 2 weeks. Now, since we know that most men on the planet right now are engaging in pornography, I can tell you from my own experience and all the men I talk to who have been in this pornographic addiction that we don't release our semen to pornography once every 2 weeks. We don't even do it once every few days. It's usually daily, sometimes on special events, even more. So what this means is that men are walking around in an epidemic right now, entering a perpetual state of overlapping dopamine crashes and entering into a perpetual state of chronic fatigue, mood imbalance, anger, irritability, and a total inability to connect in any meaningful way in the relationship. Let me lay it out for you easy to understand. Okay, if you had a partner who's addicted to cocaine, you would not expect that partner to be at peak physical conditioning, sexual function, connective in the relationship, growing in the relationship, communicating, their emotional balance, mental acuity. You wouldn't expect that, would you? Yet no. That's what's happening with pornography. We're experiencing an epidemic right now of men who are unable to function on any meaningful level. And this is triggering a relationship epidemic. I mean, the brain is fascinating. While we are consciously aware we're engaging in a fantasy every time we look at the screen, the brain, every time we release our semen to novel pornographic material, thinks it is real. The brain thinks we're waging a highly successful campaign of mating with a wide range of novel, sexy mates. And that's the very definition of what's called mating behavior. There's mating behaviors, and the hope is bonding behaviors, which we talk about with semen release. But anyways, that sounds incredibly archaic. Mating behavior is, the definition is spreading maximum genetic diversity through novel mate selection. And that sounds incredibly backwards and archaic to me. It doesn't hold any place in a modern relationship. Yet men are practicing this and they're perfecting it to toxic levels. And then they're transposing this into their relationships where women are forced to do one of two things, either to go along with this pornographic behavior, or to actually make clear, defined boundaries in the relationship that there's no place for pornography, unbridled semen release based, sex, and lacking any bonding behaviors, as toxic mating behaviors in the relationship. And that's what I recommend for women to do, because men need to have boundaries, because right now they're out of control. And this will actually help them to hopefully have a chance to regain their vitality and vibrancy in life. But yeah, this kind of bridges into semen retention, this is really the most feared word in men that I talk to. And they're afraid that they're going to lose their satisfaction they get from releasing semen, yet they have no clue what they're missing out on. In fact, I could even make a case that because men in large part right now have decreased dopamine levels and decreased chi sexual energy. Chi sexual energy is our life force. It's our physical and sexual energy that has the power to create new life and create our own lives. Because that's decreased in men, I can make the case that they're actually already losing satisfaction. They're already desensitized. In fact, they're pushing away the reality they think that they're living. They think they're mating with these beautiful women, yet in real life, women can tell when men are lacking in magnetism, drive, success in life, creativity, clarity, communicative abilities, emotional balance. They can tell, and sexual performance, and women are going to run the other way. But the truth is paradoxical with semen retention. It's unbelievable the profound changes I've experienced with semen retention. As our chi sexual energy and dopamine levels return to healthy levels, we actually experienced increased sensitivity and satisfaction, increased sexual potency, performance, fuller embodiment. And now we can actually prolong the experience so we can get alignment with our partners. Men are absolutely, they're just not taught that women are on a different time cycle sexually, that women are just getting aroused at the moment that a man is not only finished after 3 to 5 minute average, but also pulling away and distancing on top of it because of the neurological effects that happens. And this leaves women completely confused and perplexed and pulling away themselves. So now we're able to get in alignment. This is really the only way to gain any semblance of control sexually for men, is to practice semen retention, because we can slow down, we can pull out, we can smell the flowers, we can, enjoy the dance and not focus so much on the end goal of just ejaculation and that climax. We can still climax, but we're just avoiding that semen from being released. And that's really the most important benefit of semen retention of all, is avoiding that dopamine crash, which causes the fatigue, the mood imbalance, the distancing, and what's called satiety in the relationship. That goes with that mating behavior. But yeah, bonding behaviors are the hope that I've learned from Tao, Tantra, and Karetsa is, bonding behaviors have to do with attachment theory, with secure attachments. When we're babies, we're seeking these cues that we're loved. And so when we're in relationship, as we're older and we grow up, we still want these cues in our relationship. And so, like, for example, when a mother gazes deeply into the eyes of her baby, this is sending cues of love to the baby, that there's a secure attachment there. And the East is unbelievable that they've figured out over millennia a way to hack this mating behavior that's so intense, it's impossible to get rid of entirely, and supplant it with bonding behaviors that can satisfy that intense mating drive, yet build long-term connective relationships that can last indefinitely if we choose. And these bonding behaviors include, for example, deep eye gazing, like I mentioned, deep listening, deep communication, slow building foreplay, sensual play, meaningful touch, embracing, holding, caressing, and honoring the heart and soul of that individual in front of us, rather than objectifying into sexualized body parts with the heart and soul extracted from the transaction.
That's amazing. And thank you for sharing that. So we're just wrapping up the show right now. We've got about a minute and a half left. I wanted to thank you. We didn't get through all of the things that we maybe had on the list to talk about, but I hope that you guys the listeners out there have gotten enough information to get curious, to go check out the book, You Are Not Broken. It's a holistic guide for men and women to heal the pathways of sexual dysfunction and restore relational harmony together. I think the together part is really important, because a lot of times people feel like they're so alone in this, and in relationships, you often just kind of go off on your own and do things, but the together part is really key. So for those of you who are interested, you can find Brooke's book. You can keyword search that. Also, you can find links on Inspired Choices Network to get to that. And for those of you who are looking forward to next week's show, I I am too. And hopefully the tornado effect on my internet will be done, and I will have internet back, and I'll be back in my space sharing something great with you guys next week. So have a great week.
Could I mention one thing?
The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. The Pleasure Zone returns next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Until then, have the best week of your life by choosing to be turned on and tuned in to your body.